When the last of the Union troops marched out of the South in 1877, most white Southerners heaved a sigh of relief. They believed that the economic situation would improve once the Army left. They were sorely mistaken.
Well, the reason why Europeans feared us coming out of slavery so much is because African Americans did all the work for them, even the poor whites, even the ones who could not afford slaves. So we was the ones who planted the fields to everybody. So they did not know how to farm when blacks was released from slavery. We was the ones who did all the building. We was the blacksmiths. We had all the skills. They hadn't worked for 100 and something years. This is why they could not succeed. The only reason why whites was able to do well in the North is because they had jobs working for factories. When it came to living free and independent, whites could not do that. They had been enslaved their entire existence on earth. This is why they fight so hard to keep blacks enslaved, because our freedom makes them fear that they will go back into slavery, which is what happened. They went back into financial slavery. They went back into indentured servitude. They went back to working off a debt. That is what America is based off now. It's based off of credit. We are now back in a system of financial servitude, and white people led us back into financial servitude because they could not survive outside of working for white people. And so white people had to give them money, which they could not pay back because they was not able to be producers. So because they could not be producers, they was constantly just loaned large amounts of money. By them being given all this money on credit, what it did was it priced everything out of range. So now your labor is not good enough to make you buy anything because they're study printing money, giving it to the white people, making the things that you need out of life too expensive, because these white people had jobs that they had to work for the next 30, 40 years so they would be able to pay off all this debt. They was back into indentured servitude. And because they got so much credit and they printed up so much money, they made living outside of that system impossible. So everybody had to go into debt or use credit in order to maintain your life. And those who do not have that credit are living in poverty.
Wilmington, prior to November 1898, was what the New South could be at the cusp of the 20th century.
There was an unusual degree of Black prosperity.
In Wilmington, there were successful Black entrepreneurs, doctors, teachers, but also Black elected officials. And for a time, that was true throughout the state. Take a look at the politicians on this poster of the 1889 North Carolina House of Representatives. Here at the bottom are Black Republican representatives, some from Wilmington. North Carolina also sent 4 Black Republicans to the U.S. Congress between 1875 and 1899.
Black was capable of being self-sufficient. We was capable of repeatedly building our own communities. We had the skills coming up out of slavery. We had the work ethic coming up out of slavery.
Oklahoma had 45 Black towns and municipalities. It was capital of Black self-determination. So as a result, a number of enterprising young Black entrepreneurs started to create a business district.
In 1905, the Greenwood District gets its first business, a grocery store on the corner of Greenwood Avenue and Archer Street. From this humble start, Greenwood soon flourishes into the vital, exciting center of African-American life in Tulsa. By 1921, it is a place of limitless opportunities, both economic and social.
I liken it to a city within a city. Greenwood itself is an area of nearly 40 square blocks with individual neighborhoods, individual churches that have their own parishes.
About 40 to 45 blocks of a residential community with a business district.
Southern businessmen looked to the devastated South and saw opportunity. Land was cheap, and factories quickly turned Southern resources, like cotton, into profit. But the profits went north, leaving the South in a state of poverty.
Poor whites were in a dire position, just like former slaves, and they had to try to get back on their feet.
At that time, Greenwood had business.
Everything was happening there. We had the Dreamland Theater, we had drugstores, we had dance halls, pool rooms, shine parlors. That's where everybody just hung out.
People go down one side of Greenwood and up the other, and you could see the fashions and all of that.
During this era, Tulsa is essentially two cities, the black North End and the white South End.
And that was segregation days,
Burdened by debt and overcome by their resentment of landowners' power, poor whites became angrier and angrier. Their frustration fueled intense racism as they sought to elevate their own lowly status by degrading their black peers.
Many African American communities in the United States were thriving in the 1910s and 20s. But the high level of home ownership in Greenwood made Tulsa's black district distinctive.
Now, for some white people, a black person with any wealth, then as well as today, is something that created jealousy. When Oklahoma became a state in 1907, there was great rejoicing throughout the state and through the territory, and amongst black Oklahomans as well. But very soon, the racial climate started to change.
After the Constitutional Congress, after state was approved, the first bill segregated the state.
Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We were all meant to shine as children do. It's not just in some of us, it's in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others.
Let's be clear. The emancipation of African Americans opened up a large array of freedoms for all of Americans. First, you have the 13th Amendment, which bans slavery for everyone, right? Then you have what is called the 14th Amendment, which gives everyone in America equal protection under the law. Then right immediately after that, you have what is the 15th Amendment, which gives all American, all American-born citizens the right to vote. The emancipation of African Americans ended a 240-year Jim Crow that whites had suffered under as well, where they could not reach the status of white elites because they were still stuck under a class system. The first time in American history blacks and whites allied together caused the Bacon Rebellion. The second time blacks and whites had a chance, right, to remove the elites from their position was after the Civil War. But due to whites' insecurity, the elite whites was able to turn poor whites against their very allies. This is why blacks have to completely separate from whites. It's because they cannot be trusted. They have continuously worked against their own self-interest in order to hurt us.
And yeah, I am radical. I do believe that we need to get radical about what we are doing.
Kamala Harris supported defunding the police, taxpayer benefits for illegal immigrants, Medicare for all, and the Green New Deal.
And yeah, I am radical.
So it appears that Iran has launched many missiles, sirens all over central and southern Israel and in the border settlements too.
Yeah, pretty much everywhere. Well, I mean, look, the real question remains, what ends up being the Israeli response to this? And is this, are we watching a show, or is this, and even if we are, at what point do we cross some type of threshold? The real problem is that this is working for Netanyahu in Israel. His bombing of Lebanon and his behavior over the past month or so, for whatever reason, I guess they've given up on the hostages in Israel, has raised his approval rating. He just brought in someone into his government that I guess was a former rival And there is no way to stop Israel unless you are the president of the United States.